So Metal Gear Solid 4.
Where to begin?
I don't even know where to begin.
Yeah.
I would say it's easily the first game in the franchise which the fan base is really split on. It's kind of had the opposite effect Metal Gear Solid 2 has had on me, as in the more I play it, the least I like it. I like it less and less the more I play it.
Yeah.
I still think it's a good game, though. When it gets things right, it gets them really right. But certain reveals, we'll just cut straight to the point. The Patriots are basically revealed to be your radio crew from Metal Gear Solid 3, that being Zero, Paramedic, Sigint, and we also find out that Eva and Ocelot were also involved as well as Big Boss. And it sort of kind of comes out of nowhere. There's no like real build up to it or anything. You go and meet when you get, because the game's also divided into 5 chapters, and chapter 1 and 2 are very strong. Chapter 3 is so boring, but it's when all the big reveal happens. Chapter 4 is easily the best because you go back to Shadow Moses and they pretty much recreate 2/3 of Shadow Moses, which is an amazing experience. And chapter 5 is basically, it's like the ending of the game. Another problem this game has for me, it is cutscene galore. I mean, the series always was, but these cutscenes go on and on and on and on and on. The ending is about 2 hours long. It's like a film. The ending is a film itself.
Well, it's trying to wrap up so much over the last 3 games.
And they do address a lot of, they do answer a lot of questions, to be fair. They touch base more with who Dr. Clark was. They expand more on the DARPA chief, which is actually Sigint from the third game. They reveal who the Patriots are. I find it a little bit hard to swallow that your goofy sidekick in the first game is basically the Emperor Palpatine.
I was going to say, he's the overarching evil, and it's like, well, you've only established that in this game.
You also get characters like Meryl coming back. She wasn't even mentioned in the second game, so she's still alive and kicking. So the canon ending is that Meryl survives the torture. In a lot of people's eyes, Raiden was redeemed in Metal Gear Solid 4 because he became like this badass ninja. But there's also a lot of things that really aren't that good as well. I find it funny.
My arm! I was pretending all along.
Yeah.
Nano machines. This is the moral of the story of this game. It was all nano machines.
Nano machines can create electricity. Nano machines can make you psychic. Nano machines can make you fly. Nano machines can make you control machines.
I do love I do love the concept of the system, and there are all these different private military groups that anyone can hire around the world. Everybody is ID'd, from their personal ID to their weapons, except to the vehicles they drive. They're all linked to this system. I really do love that concept, and it's basically the system that's being developed by the Patriots. But since it's revealed that Zero more or less became a bloody vegetable, the system just sort of ended up doing everything on its own without anybody managing it. You think it's liquid, but it is revealed that it isn't liquid. It is Ocelot. It always has been Ocelot. He was using nanomachines and hypnotherapy and all sorts of things to pretend that to convince even himself that he was Liquid Snake. So it wouldn't so the system would have no idea, Ocelot's trying to destroy the system.
Trying to accomplish.
Things that I do really like about it, I think the Octo Camo is a really good quality of life improvement. So you're not constantly going into a menu all the time. You can just rub up to any surface and then, your Octo Camo will match the surface. I also quite like the concept of Drebin's shop as well, even though the game does encourage you to don't go in guns blazing, but here's about 50,000 bloody weapons you can buy if you want. So, I would say it is the first Metal Gear Solid game where you can either play stealthily or you can go in there guns blazing. But the first two chapters, you're basically you can join like this militia group and just go in there, killing everyone. I mean, they love you for it. It just makes traversing through the world a little bit easier as well.
So what I was going to say is, I do like elements of it, but I think, as you were sort of alluding to before, to me, the two big problems, I'll go into what I like later on, but the two big problems for me is, number one, to me, it felt like it sacrificed gameplay for the cinematic experience.
When you can control it, it's really good.
Yeah. And the second problem for me is, I think, and maybe looking back at it now, this might not be a problem, but at the time, I think 4 was so far removed from 1 and 2 because you had 3 in the middle that kind of broke up the pace, that when I played it, I was like, I could barely remember some of the stuff that they were trying to tie up. So it was like, oh, this is like going back to, oh, look, remember us? Remember this from the first game? Remember this from the second game? Oh, look, now we're going to throw you into like Shadow Mode, which I love, by the way, but it was almost like, it was very much a kind of member berries game. And like you say, with the whole, like the Patriots, I think that was kind of just, there didn't feel like there was much build up to that. It was, like you say, the characters that you met in Metal Gear Solid 3 were the overarching like villains of the whole franchise, or at least partly anyway.
It's the first game in the franchise, and I mean this no disrespect, because I really am a big admirer of Kojima.
Yeah.
But it's the first game, Metal Gear Solid game in the series, where it felt tired, because I felt like the writing in Metal Gear Solid 1, 2, and 3 was so tight and so well constructed that Metal Gear Solid 4 is kind of a far cry from that.
And it's so, it's just so, and maybe you could argue that this was a case for like the other games, but it's so nihilistic. Like everything,
it's so morbid,
depressing. Yeah. You know, just when you think that you couldn't get any worse for Snake, it does. Like it starts off, oh crap, okay, now you're finally playing a Snake again, but he's really old and he's dying. Oh,
man, yeah,
that's brilliant.
Accelerated age bit pissed me off.
Yeah, it's like, oh, because he's a clone, and also because he's got the Fox Die virus, which now
could turn into a pandemic.
Yeah, it's developed to a point where he's basically a weapon of mass destruction, so he knows he has to die anyway. So it's like, why am I even bothering with this game if I know? Do you know what I mean? It's just so dark.
You've even got like.
And then again, it's juxtaposed when you get to Ray in the Rex and fight Ray. Oh,
yeah.
Oh no, that I'm not gonna lie. I know I take Sean's point with the member berries thing, but I think the Shadow Moses part of the game is.
Oh yeah, that's the ironic thing of that is
the fact you can get in, and the fact you can get in Rex and fuck up Ray's shit is amazing.
Yeah, it's brilliant. But again, if you come at this again like not being having any prior knowledge of the franchise, you're going to be completely fucking lost in terms of it. But it's not very accessible to just like the general audience. And maybe okay, you can have these things of like niche games and niche series and stuff like that, but those were probably the biggest problems I had with it. But the positives were the fact that a lot of like loose ends, core fans of the franchise did get tied up. The gameplay, when you actually could play, was awesome, and the graphics again were just like a massive leap, because it was quite early.
It's the most beautiful game on the PlayStation 3.
Yeah.
Like, but funny enough, another gripe I have with Metal Gear Solid 4 is that you have to own a goddamn PlayStation 3 to play it. Yeah. It hasn't had a PC release or a PS4 or
which
PS5
I find
release.
Quite incredible.
It's like that Red Dead Redemption. Like, why has this not been re-released?
Yeah. It boggles the mind. It really
I don't understand. I had to dig out my fat old PlayStation 3 to play this game. If you want to play every game in this franchise, it's nothing short of a nightmare.
Yeah, as you've just experienced.
There's no like, oh my god, I had to get emulators going. I had to get my PlayStation 3 going. I had to get, play the other games through Steam and all sorts. What a bloody nightmare.
I didn't really like, I know you might disagree, I didn't really like the Beauty and the Beast unit.
No, neither did I.
It just didn't feel very inspired. It was just
Drebin can tell you how terrible their life was, but I found that, I think the best, I thought the Laughing Octopus one was really good.
I can't remember any of them anyway.
This is it. They're just 4 or 5, how many were like really hot women, but they
were just rehashed. They were rehashed other ideas from the previous games.
Yeah.
If they were actually like completely brand new boss villains with their own unique, had tragic backstories, that would have been one thing. But they had to harpen back, and it was just like, well, if I want to play the other games, I'll play the other games. I need to have this new character be an emulated version of the previous thing. I feel like there was a lot of wasted opportunities in there.
Yeah, it was. I mean, having said that, like I said before about how, like, I don't know, I didn't like the idea of finally get to play as Snake, but then he's like,
no, he's an old man suddenly.
Yeah, it's like, be careful what you wish for.
Yeah. Having said that, though, David Hayter again puts on a fucking awesome performance, because
he makes Snake sound like a dying old man.
Yeah, he does.
A lot of pain all the time,
and it just goes to show just how much dedication David Hayter had to that role, and how much respect and love he had for it, because he gave it his all.
Oh no, definitely. Yeah. The game also alludes that Snake and Meryl had a very brief relationship at one point.
What I didn't like was just the fact that Meryl is constantly berating Snake, and it's
there's that scene. I must admit, it's quite a great scene where they're in the train station. It's in the 3rd chapter.
Yeah,
Meryl's trying to say, listen, you don't have to keep fighting.
I can do it for you.
I can do it for you. And Snake's like not really having any of it. He's just being a stubborn old man.
Yeah.
And then Meryl just basically says, "Stay the hell out of our way." And she goes, pokes his shoulder. She goes, "Old Snake."
Old.
See the psyche bar go down. But the ironic thing is, Snake's wearing he's got his young face on because he's got the optic camouflage on.
That was pretty cool.
Yeah. I can't really recall much of the music in the game either, as well.
Especially in the beginning where it goes like "War has changed," and you hear.
Oh yeah, no, that's good. I'm thinking more in-game music as opposed to I think it's called Love Theme. That's really good. Splice in some examples here. If I'll have a listen to the sound, oh, that's quite nice. I'll splice it.
But then again, like I was taking the piss with the Rex versus Ray, which is still a cool scene. You're playing it for that big fight scene at the end.
Yeah.
That's the payoff. And then all the reveals that happen at the end of the game. You're really just playing for up to that point.
Just to see what happens in the end.
There's so much of it. You're just like, well, I'm just trying to get to the end of the journey now.
And they do really milk it as well. Like when you like you say, Harry, when you finally fight Ocelot at the top, and then it kind of regresses back, and then it goes back to like the different theme tunes from like all the games leading up to that point, to the point where at the very end,
and then
like the Snake Eater.
Changed.
I think the biggest holy shit moment of the game is when Big Boss shows up at the end.
And that was only because
Snake's just as shocked as Snake is.
Yeah, and only because that happens just after you think that Snake is going to fucking blow his brains out.
Oh God! It's like from the moment the game begins to the moment it ends.
It's just so fucking depressing.
It's so depressing, and I don't mean depressing as in like in a Metal Gear Solid 3. Like you're really choked up at the ending.
Yeah.
But this it doesn't really have the same sort of choking up feeling. You're like, oh, I just want this to end. I cannot bear it any longer.
At the end of Metal Gear Solid 3 was that you had such sympathy for Big Boss because of everything they put him through. Whereas this game is just like, oh, everything's shit. Everything's gone to shit.
Well, apparently at the time, Kojima was more or less fed up of the franchise as well. So it's almost like he went in there to sabotage.
Just wants to kill everyone off.
Yeah, because he was ready to finish the franchise after Metal Gear Solid 2. He's always seen 2 as like his magnum opus. You know, the way that speech at the end of Metal Gear Solid 2 that Snake gives, it's almost as if it's coming from Kojima himself.
Yeah.
And he was quite happy to end the series there and leave all these questions unanswered, which, with the benefit of hindsight, I'm glad he didn't, because it would have driven everybody nuts.
Do you know what it kind of reminds me of? I know this is a weird comparison, but at the end of Metal Gear Solid 2, you know, when you finally see, after you've defeated Solidus, and then Raiden bumps into Snake, and Snake is like, you know, we're not tools of the government, you know, even anyone can be, you know, stand up for what they believe in, even me. And then from the change from that to Metal Gear Solid 4, it's like everything's fucked. So, oh man.
Does it mean that we're all destined to become old, jaded people?
Just hope my face doesn't get burnt.
or get microwaved as you climb.
Oh, man.
Oh, God.
I'll tell you what, that was brilliant. It was horrible, but it was brilliant.
Yeah, I was like, I just want this to win. Why? I used to feel sorry for saying, no, my fucking thumb's hurting. I can't press this button.
I will admit, one of my favourite parts of the game, as much as I've gone on about how I didn't like the nihilism of it, the bit where it intercuts between Snake calling from the microwave, and then you've got like it's got at the top with Raiden fighting Vamp. I thought that was really cool because it's like fucking hell. This is, you know, both of like the protagonists of the franchise are like, you know,
yeah, it's great. It's great if you've got people watching you, but if you're bloody playing it, you can't enjoy it. You've got this amazing battle going on between Vamp and Raiden, and you're too busy like arsing around with the gecko. I think they're called.
Yeah.
You know, those little Metal Gear Rexes that moo and shit themselves.
Sound like cows.
I mean, I suppose it sort of shows the quality of a game when I've only ever played it once, all the way through, and never felt like wanting to play it ever again.
Yeah,
you only played it once.
I only ever played it once.
I played it.
That
I
time
played
when
it
you actually
twice.
came around and watched me play it. That's it.
I didn't even bother playing it. I just watched it on YouTube. Like, I just watched all the cutscenes like over a course of about 3 days, and I was like, why did I do that to myself? Like, there's some cool moments, but it was just like, oh god, this really is just like depressing. But for me, that felt like the natural end to the franchise. But then we got something else afterwards.
We're going to go back in the past again, and we're going to touch briefly on Metal Gear Solid Peacewalker. So, Harry, my first introduction to Peacewalker was actually through you. I mean, I knew of the game and everything, but I didn't have a PSP. But I remember coming over to Harry's house. He had Peacewalker and was playing it almost every time I went over.
Yeah.
So I didn't play it properly until the HD remaster came out, though. And I don't think this game's a masterpiece by any stretch of the word, but it is still a very, very damn good game. And if you played it on the PSP, I think Harry would agree, it makes a very great portable game.
Yeah. I mean, it was like nice bite-sized missions that didn't take too long. You didn't always have to play as Big Boss either. You collected up the soldiers that you came across.
Militaire Sans Frontières.
Yes.
MSF,
yeah.
Yeah, the military without borders.
Yeah.
There was a whole CQC section as well. You could do.
I thought the CQC in that game was pretty damn good, actually, because you can get like a chain of enemies. So if you're surrounded by 5 guards, you can literally just CQC them all in one go.
It turned into
yeah.
Fucking have it.
Due to the limitations as well, they didn't have too many cutscenes. They had cutscenes, but they did them in like the sort of comic book style.
Yeah, so you know, like the art
but it worked really, really well.
I reminded me of the art style of both the comic, the front covers of 1 and 2.
Yeah, it's done, but I think it could even be done by that same artist.
Probably. Yeah, and again, it answered a few questions, threw up a few more questions.
Yeah,
as usual.
The boss battles were quite unique in many respects, because there were lots of you had to fight lots of different drones because they're all at different aspects of different AI. And
you mean like the PUPA and all of that lot, yeah.
And you collected up the AI parts to make your own version of the first Metal Gear.
Zeke. Yeah, I think the point you made is that they were bite-sized missions. It was designed to be played on the go.
You don't have the time to sit down for an hour.
No. And there's no long codec calls either. You can go in to listen to the cassette tapes, whenever you wanted to as well, which would give you like exposition and, you know, other further information. So it doesn't try to shove anything down your throat. You can listen to it in your own time.
The most satisfying thing is going around a whole mission and just nicking everybody on the mission.
Oh, the fault and recovery. Yeah, yeah.
Just like, I've knocked him out.
Well, this is the first game that, well, not the first game. I haven't played Portable Ops. Is this the first game that introduces like a mother-based concept?
Yes.
It is. Okay. Yeah, I find that quite addicting, actually. You know, the more soldiers you recruit.
Because you do build up the base. You know,
Yeah.
I just remember that. You build up the sections, and it actually strangely looked a lot like Big Shell.
Yeah, yes, it did. Yes, it did. Yeah, it's one of those Metal Gear games which has like two endings as well. There's the first ending where you defeat the Peacewalker Metal Gear, and you know, because the reason why Big Boss is lured into this mission is because it's looking like there's a chance the boss might actually be alive, and that's the reason. And it turns out that she's just like this AI pod.
Oh, the AI, like,
yeah, she's just this AI pod.
It is proper like, like
yeah.
That's actually the only memory I have of that game, because I remember when I watched it around Harry's, that was the bit that he got up to. And it was like, oh shit.
Yeah. We're also introduced to how Otacon father. Yeah. We know how that ends up in the next game, which we'll talk about it very shortly. But the boss AI was developed by Dr. Strangelove, because she was like a huge admirer of the boss, and she couldn't understand why she did what she did. She never once bought into the fact that she was a traitor.
Doesn't it end with you having to fight Cypher?
Yeah, it is revealed at the end of the game where there's this girl, Paz, who's like this young student, you know, I believe in peace and all of that. And it turns out this entire time she's actually another reason why Big Boss goes on the mission as well. Not just to find the boss who says, I'll do it for Paz, you know, I'm going to go to Nicaragua and or Costa Rica or wherever it is. And she's revealed to be an agent for Cypher, for Zero. And because what you actually do throughout the game, you actually build your own Metal Gear Zeke, and depending on how well you build it will determine how difficult the boss battle is.
Yeah.
So I didn't know that was going to happen. So my Zeke had like the best of everything. So when Pus takes control of it, good God, that boss fight. Oh my God.
Some Dark Souls shit.
To do it. Yeah, it was like playing Dark Souls all of a sudden. And also the fight with
you've made it as difficult as it
yes.
is.
And also the fight with Peacewalker goes on for a bloody eternity as well. I think I was fighting that thing for about 30 minutes. And you've got when you run out of ammo, you've got to like request for more ammo to be dropped as well.
Yeah.
Right.
Things that I like about it. I like Miller as a character. He's a pretty cool character. I think overall the story's cool. It's interesting to see the start of Big Boss's sort of turn into villainy. Not that you really needed to see it, but it's there all the same. I thought they handled it pretty well, because at the end he announces out of heaven and he rejects, although he gives a one last final salute, he rejects the boss's, you know, what she wanted. You know, she wanted the world to be... Yeah. She basically just wanted to put down her gun and let the world be whole again. He was like, well, don't want to do that. I want to basically form my own army, and we won't be, you know, because your government, your government sent you to your death. Your government sent you to your death. I'm never going to let that happen to me.
That's my interpretation of your vision, but even if it isn't, I'm just going to do it anyway.
Yeah, and
I've come too far now.
Yeah, an army without borders. We will be hired to be freedom fighters or terrorists or whatever it is. Yeah, we are an army for hire, and now we've got nukes, we've got our own Metal Gear, etc. And he
our own nation.
Basically, yeah, and he calls it Out of Heaven. But funny enough, this was David Hayter's last voice acting role as any form in the franchise.
Yeah,
he makes Big Boss sound like a legit nutcase in that last cutscene. So, or you know, the after credit scene that we usually get quite often in these series. Things I don't like were rectified in the HD remaster. Like it doesn't control very well on the PSP version, but the HD remaster sorts that out. I don't like the fact that I find the last part of the game to be quite boring. Because there's this chap called Zdanov who you keep having to capture over and over and over and over again.
Oh yeah,
like 5 or 6 times.
So
to basically to unlock the true ending of the game, basically bores you to death doing it. It's not fun. It's not interesting in the slightest. Yeah, I think it's more of a detriment than.
You keep locking him up, and he keeps escaping.
Yeah,
and then you have to wander around your base that you've created.
Yeah,
and obviously the bigger you've made your base, the more places.
Yeah, and once again, none of the soundtracks really stand out to me, bar than I think it's Heaven's Divide, something like that.
Okay.
Banger of a song.
When heavens divide, I will see the choices within my hands. How can we ever protect and fight with our tiny souls? Let me shine like the sun through the doubts and fear. Do you feel the storm approach as the end draws near? When heavens divide.
Okay, so I know, Sean, you haven't played much of Peacewalker, but Harry, overall solid game. No pun intended.
Yeah. And I played it more than once, so
yeah, likewise. I played it
so
more
it counts
than
for
once,
something.
Yeah. No, I agree with you. Overall, very good game. Do play the HD remaster version though if you're going to play it. And finally, we come to Metal Gear Solid 5 or Metal Gear Solid V, whichever way you want to call it. Ground Zeroes and the Phantom Pain. They are pretty much the same game.
Yeah.
But Konami, in their infinite wisdom, thought, because originally Ground Zeroes was meant to come as one big package with the Phantom Pain.
Yeah.
And I think the Phantom Pain I would overall hire in much higher regard if they did have the Ground Zeroes part of it, because even though it's technically it is a glorified demo.
Glorified tech demo.
Yeah. It is amazing. Like, that small hub world you explore, for me, is better than anything the Phantom Pain had to offer.
Oh yeah, without doubt. It felt more like a Metal Gear Solid game than Phantom Pain ever to me. So I was
it felt like the tanker in
and they still were charging bloody 30 quid for it, and it's not even a full game. What are you doing?
I'm going to call them. I'm just going to refer to both of them as Metal Gear Solid 5.
Yeah.
But the game does, and still only came out a few years ago, but it looks amazing. Also,
it plays amazing.
Yeah, no, the gameplay is outstanding. It gives you so much freedom. All the missions are kind of sort of along the same line. Save this person, blow that thing up, infiltrate this base. But it gives you so many options and different ways of how you choose to complete that mission.
And for that, I give it props, because it did hook me in that respect of, like, it's almost had a kind of, not in terms of like storyline or mechanics, but in terms of like the scale of it, it felt like a sort of GTA style kind of open world. You could do whatever you want.
Yeah.
But there is a story to follow, kind of thing.
Yeah. The game also adapts to your playing style as well.
Yeah.
So I noticed I kept shooting soldiers in the head with the trank gun. And then after doing that for a couple of missions, all the soldiers start wearing helmets, so you can't head shoot them.
It's very adaptive. So the AI is very clever.
Yeah, so you can't shoot them in the head anymore. Or if you keep using smoked grenades, a couple of missions later, they're all wearing gas masks.
Yeah.
Or if you infiltrate from a certain vantage point, let's say you come in through the back entrance all the time, next time you go back there, they put claymores there. So very, very clever how the AI adjusts to your playing style. Kiefer Sutherland is Snake in this. He's Big Boss in this game.
Yeah.
I don't know why they hired him. The thing is, though, when he does speak, he's really, really good. His delivery is
all 5 collective minutes.
It's like he recorded his dialogue in an afternoon.
Well, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, either one of you two or someone in the comments, but I think the reason why was because Kojima wanted a more Hollywood
facial capture.
Well, there's that as well, but also like he wanted it to be like a Hollywood feeling kind of game, and he
because the games weren't like that already.
Well, yeah, exactly. But also, he wanted to be like, oh, there's a different Big Boss and Solid Snake are not, even though they're clones, they're not the same person, so they need to be different. But the fact is, it's like, well, hang on a minute, you've had 2 Metal Gear Solid 3. David Hayter played the voice. Peacewalker, he played the voice. So why all of a sudden now? You decided, actually, I'm going to get Kiefer Sutherland. No disrespect to Kiefer Sutherland, he's brilliant. I love him as an actor. I think he's fantastic. But I just think it was a very left field choice.
But if you're going to get Kiefer Sutherland in, he's totally underutilized. He doesn't say anything. He barely says anything. Yeah. I don't give a shit about Skullface.
No.
I don't know why they've introduced him. This is the perfect opportunity if you are going to bloat out Big Boss's backstory even more.
Yeah.
Even though you really didn't need to, but fuck it, let's do another one. Expand more on Zero as a villain. But instead they bring in this loser that nobody liked. You listen to the cassette tapes and you hear how he's treating Paz and Chico, in the Ground Zeroes portion of the game, and it's like he's like a wannabe Volgan. It's kind of like I'm evil for the sake of being evil.
I was just gonna lead me onto that point of it's just like a generic bad guy.
But Volgan, it's almost like he knows how awful he is.
Yeah,
he doesn't try to hide it. Whereas Skullface, this idea that he tries to justify his actions, it's like, no, dude, you're just a prick.
Yeah. And correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, I'm evil.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't like the sort of the crux, main villainous thing that's going through the game is that they've created a virus which erases language?
Erases language. Skullface felt like since from the day he was born or whatever, I'm sort of paraphrasing here because I've actually played the Phantom Pain twice and I can still barely remember the story.
Yeah.
But from what so don't quote me on this, but from what I remember, Skullface felt like he was born with really nothing. Even the language he spoke was stolen from him. And what he wanted to do was to basically erase the English language, completely wipe it off the face of the earth. So if this virus is released and everyone starts speaking English, they end up,
being zombies.
Yeah, Well, there's that actually pretty great mission part in Phantom Pain where you go to the quarantine lab of Mother Base, and everyone there is infected, and you have to kill them, and you see your heroism points.
Yeah, and you get like the devil horns and all this sort of stuff.
Yeah. So that was a pretty cool portion of the game.
Yeah. I think the actual build-up to this game was more exciting than the actual game itself. Because
easily had the biggest build-up of any Metal Gear Solid game since 2.
Yeah.
The build-up for this game was massive.
And it wasn't billed as a Metal Gear game either. It was sort of like it was under the code name of Phantom Pain.
Yeah.
So there was no kind of like, oh, this is built as like the next Metal Gear Solid game. For a while, it was just, oh, it's a Hideo Kojima game. And it's called the Phantom Pain, and this weird shit's happening, and you see this big, like, weird, like, fiery horse and stuff like that, and you're thinking, what the fuck's going on here? And then, obviously, as it turns out, okay, it's Metal Gear Solid 5, and it's another prequel, and it's like, for me, just the fact that this game was made was kind of negative for me in a way, because it's like, this is the final game of the franchise, and yet it's another prequel.
It's totally incomplete as well.
Yeah.
Like, the ending just comes out of nowhere, and frankly, the ending is crap. I hate the idea of Venom Snake. There being 2 big bosses. Well, 1 big boss, but there's another one now.
Yeah.
I really did not like that reveal. I'm sorry. I mean, I'm probably going to get dislikes or hates in the comment, but I do not rate the Phantom Pain.
No.
I remember IGN, it came out and they gave it like a 10 out of 10. And then I was playing and I was like, where have you got this 10 out of 10 from? Or
I think they probably based it purely on the gameplay, which, to be fair, is brilliant.
I've never seen such smooth transitions from when he dives down onto the ground and then gets back up. There's in most games you can see I say the animation. It sounds like a really stupid thing, but you can see the preset movement.
Yeah.
Whereas on here, you'll see him get up from different positions.
Yes.
And it just looks natural. Like
no, it is like
so well done.
Proper motion capture.
The way it looks and controls, you can't fault it. It is really, really.
There is something about
the gameplay is the best part.
It's so much fun.
Yeah,
There's so many different ways you can do sneaking about or just shooting everybody, or you can tranquilize everybody. I mean, it's just like, well, however you want to do your mission is how you can do it, and that is the big strong point to Metal Gear Solid 5.
Yeah,
where it falls down, and this is where every other Metal Gear gets it right, is the story.
It's almost like the reverse of Metal Gear Solid 4. Metal Gear Solid 4 is like 70% cutscenes and 30% gameplay, whereas this is like the other way around. But because you can go about doing missions in certain orders and then do a load of side missions, it's difficult to keep track of the story.
Yeah.
But not only that, it's the side missions and the main missions, you just end up repeating them after a while, so it ends up by being the ultimate backtrack bullshit.
I think you have to complete some of them, but in a much harder difficulty to unlock the final bloody ending of the game.
Yeah. I know I gave Metal Gear Solid 4 a bit of sort of negativity, but at least to me, that felt like a natural final end to the franchise.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's definitely with what happens at the end of 4, and you suddenly see Big Boss, and he comes and explains everything. For all its faults, it does answer all the questions. Like, you get to the end of the 4, and you're like, everything's almost tied up with a bow, almost.
To
the point where you're like, I'm satisfied with this is where it ends.
Yeah.
Fine.
Yeah.
But 5 does nothing to expand on any of that.
It just opens more questions.
It gives you more questions, but more questions of like, why? What?
Yeah, and then it even goes back to the point of when I said about Metal Gear Solid 4 being a very hard to access game for a general gaming audience. Metal Gear Solid 5 even more so, because obviously unless you're not like a hardcore fan, it basically ends, spoiler alert, with Venom Snake basically about to go into like Operation, what's it? I forgot the name of it, but it's
N3, whatever it's called.
It's basically Metal Gear, of the original Metal Gear games.
So basically, the big boss you kill in Metal Gear 1 is Venom Snake.
Yeah.
And then you kill the real big boss in Metal Gear 2. Nanomachine, son.
Nanomachine, son.
Basically, it's a glorified game to explain one plot hole in a game that no one's ever played.
No. And why the fuck Liquid or Eli was in that game?
Only me and Kojima have played it.
Come on.
Only me and Kojima have played it.
Yeah. Well, was it you going through? He was going through. That was like the beginning of the end for him and his relationship with Konami at the time.
Yeah.
At that point, he was just like, "Well, fuck it. I'm just going to do this because I can." And then
he left the Metal Gear Solid franchise and made a walking simulator.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, but you can occasionally get on a horse.
I think if you play the Phantom Pain and do like the main quests, it's a really enjoyable experience. But when you have to do side missions, and it's that same trap that a lot of these open world games fall into now. Yeah, there's about 150 side missions, but they're more or less the same mission, just disguised and worded, differently.
Slightly differently.
Yeah,
with the computer adapting its tactics against you to make it more difficult. So by the time you get to the end of it, it's like they're all wearing body armor, they've all got grenades, they've all got gas masks and a helmet. And it's like, well, how am I supposed to do it now? Let's just call an airstrike. Fuck it.
Get them like the most awkward points of this whole
airstrike. Fuck it. That's how I beat the Sahelanthropus or whatever it's called. The Metal Gear in this game. By the way, that boss fight. I will say this: that boss fight is amazing.
What, you mean the Megazord?
Yeah, the Megazord.
The one that looks way more advanced advanced than Rex or Ray.
That thing would batter.
50 years before, whatever it was.
That thing would batter Rex and Ray. Yeah.
And also, who could forget like the really awkward silence you get when you're sitting on the jeep with fucking skull face?
He's literally opening up to you. He's basically telling Snake how evil he is and why he's being evil and whatnot. And then Big Boss is just like, it's like, dude, say something.
Yeah, he's just sitting there. It's like,
we couldn't afford Kiefer Sutherland for that line.
Yeah.
Easy payday for Kiefer. Fair play.
Yeah. I think Kiefer's having.
How much was Konami trying to squeeze out of that? Because it was going to make loads of money anyway.
But the baffling is they kept the same Japanese voice actor for Snake and whoever did Snake and Big Boss, but they got rid of David Hayter. But David Hayter and Kojima have always had a very strained relationship.
Yeah,
they've never really got on very well with each other. And Hayter had to keep auditioning to play Solid Snake from the first game. Then you had to audition for 2, then 3, then Peacewalker and 4 and all of that.
I can't even remember the boss battles. Sorry,
there aren't any in the Phantom Pain. The only boss, there's 2. There's where you fight the Man on Fire, who ends up being Volgan, just because.
Yeah,
and
I love the fact there's not that much explanation of it. Why is he on fire? Oh, nanomachines.
Nanomachines. Oh, he blew up.
I'm sure there's a reason for it, but I can't remember. But the main fight, and to be fair, it's a damn good fight, is the Metal Gear, the SAHELANTHROPUS. Whatever it's called.
Also, why is Silent, or whatever a fucking name is?
Quiet.
Why is Quiet in a bikini the whole time?
Because I think she breathes through her skin. In the helicopter, and your bond with her, because you can bond with the horse, you can bond with the dog, you can bond with Quiet. Like the people, the buddies you bring out on missions with you. When your bond with Quiet is at its highest, she's borderline doing a lap dance for you in the helicopter. I'm like, do you mind? I'm trying to listen to my cassettes here.
I'll tell you, the favourite thing that I did. The favourite thing that I did in that game was the when you could set the music to whenever the helicopter drops down, and I did it.
Flight of the Valkyries.
Yeah.
It's that moment as well, because you could hear it from fucking miles off when you set off the thing, and it's like
you're like you're trying.
Oh shit! I forgot I left that on.
You're trying to quietly.
Yeah, we're coming down, motherfuckers.
You're trying to quietly exit the mission zone, and I haven't attracted any of the guards, and the helicopter comes in with fire. The Valkyries, all the guards are like, what the fuck? I also remember when I was watching the trailers, and clearly they squeezed every bit of substance they could out of the game to shove it in the trailers.
Yeah.
And I was listening to all these. I heard hearing Zero talk, Cars talk, and Ocelot talk, and things like that. I think, oh my god, I can't wait to see these in cutscenes. All of them are in cassette tapes, so you have to listen to when you're in the helicopter afterwards. Oh, and the other thing with Mother Base as well. Oh, okay, so the kids have escaped again. I've got to go and Fulton recovery in them out. Cars is like, oh, you can't do that, man. Okay, so I'll make a child-friendly Fulton recovery system. And then you develop it. Oh, great, I've got to wait 40 minutes for it to develop. Because when you develop
I've got to do a side mission.
Yeah. I've got to sit here and wait for 40 minutes for this goddamn thing to finish downloading.
I got to the point, I got 70 hours in, and then my PS4 fucked up and then erased all my data. And I was like, right, I'm not going to fucking start from the beginning again. So I'm just going to watch the cutscenes from where that happened. So I've only actually played half the game. But from what I remember from playing it and from what I've seen since, it had decent ideas, but overall it was just like...
Joe actually watched the ending with me, and I just finished playing it, and I clocked in. It was a lot of hours.
Yeah.
And considering I didn't really like the game, talk about I really pushed my
dedication.
Yeah. And when the whole ending was playing out and everything, Joe sort of described it as like, I just looked over and you were sitting there like watching it, just looking really, really annoyed.
What the fuck is this? Yeah. I think it's fair to say that we didn't quite enjoy that much as the others then.
No, joking aside, no, I'm not going to completely crap all over it, because I enjoyed it more the second time. In fact, I hated it the first time, but the second time I played, I hated the story side of it, I should say, because the gameplay is really, really good.
Yeah.
But the second time I kind of got more what they were sort of trying to go for. Big Boss has completely and utterly bought into his own hype now.
Yeah.
This idea that he's taken this guy's identity from him and given him
medic.
Yeah, and given this Harry okay.
He's gone again.
And your eyes were slowly closing and your mouth was slightly open. And I was talking and I was looking at it, it looked like I was boring you to sleep. Harry's clearly had enough of talking about the Phantom Pain.
Yeah.
Sean, joking aside, what are your overall thoughts of the Phantom Pain? I feel like we've done nothing but more or less crap all over it. But overall,
I'll give it some plus points. The gameplay, fantastic. Double down on the fact that this is like Big Boss's descent into villainy, but it just felt so rushed. And again, like I said before, you had a natural end to the franchise with 4, as far as I'm concerned. And then they just felt like, oh, well, we'll just churn this one out and try and kind of do like a sort of Metal Gear Solid 3 Part 2, but it didn't quite have the same effect for me. I'll probably go back and play it again at some point, because like you said, when you played it...
I enjoyed it more on the second time.
Yeah, so
probably because I knew what I was expecting, but there are still so many things I did not like about it. Like the side ops, I find them really uninspiring. Particularly, it's not easy to get around in that map either. You're constantly phoning the helicopter. Then you have to watch that same cutscene when you lift off and when you land again.
Exactly.
It's not like Skyrim where you find a location and you can just fast travel to it. You've got to be airlifted out of there.
Yeah, exactly.
But overall, I think the game it's a good game. It's not a good Metal Gear Solid game, though.
Yeah. And I think for me, Ocelot just felt like a completely different character in this game as well.
He felt very shoehorned into me.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, like what is it? Kaz is like the douchebag that wants to fuck everything up, and Ocelot's like the Karma Collective one.
Real like juxtaposed to where they used to be, and you kind of
he wants revenge. He wants revenge. I get it, but it's just weird seeing Ocelot just like trying to calm everybody down.
Yeah, and the fact he sort of played like this is supposed to be some like sadistic Russian Spetsnaz motherfucker, and yet he's portrayed almost like a sort of like a hillbilly cowboy kind of dude.
He also does no torturing.
Well, no, he does, but he's torturing people like Huey and Quiet and things
who deserve it.
So you do see it, but once again, he knows his limits. He's trying to like always. So Kaz is like saying, when you take Quiet out, don't bring her back to this fucking base. Yeah, I'm paraphrasing, but don't bring her back to this base. And also, it's like, oh, that should be quite useful, bring her back here. It's like, the Ocelot that prior to the Phantom Pain probably wouldn't have given anybody that advice.
Exactly. And then they kind of repeat the fact that they sort of repeat the prologue of the game at the end, and then
it's unforgivable. Like it's unforgivable. Like the ending of that game is trash.
Yeah,
and you literally have to play that 2-hour awakening mission again with a few minor changes.
Yeah,
and I still think the ending to this day sucks.
Yeah,
cannot stand that ending.
No, it's just it feels unfinished.
I just think it just really makes a mess of the franchise having 2 versions of Big Boss now.
I just like I said earlier, it's a whole game. You spend however many hours doing it to just basically fill out one plot hole from the entire game franchise.
And it's not even a plot hole that really.
No, it was a retcon.
Yeah,
and it didn't need to be made.
Big bosses. Well, we need to have 2 big bosses.
Yeah, but why? You know what I mean? You didn't need 2 big bosses in the beginning. Why do you feel the need to have this out?
Which
very
one
niche
kind of... Then Snake at the end of 4, who comes out and starts talking to Snake.
Well, the thing is, even the little thing, like if they'd have gone, Snake, can you hear me?
No, Harry. That's enough.
It's me. It's me at the end of Metal Gear Solid 4. I'm telling you what happened.
Well, it couldn't be him because the big boss in Metal Gear Solid 4 speaks. That was Venom Snake. How are you still alive?
You spend all those hours and hours and hours, and then in the end, you find out, you just get killed by a rookie Snake anyway.
Venom Snake is so shit. He gets killed by a rookie Snake on his first mission. All right, so that's it for the Metal Gear Solid retrospective.
Yeah, I'll deep dive into what kind of just came into our head at the last minute.
But, deep dive is a bit of a
deep dive, doing a lot of heavy lifting there. Yeah. But no, it's really been about our personal experiences with the games. And,
so if you want to see more of this kind of stuff, we're trying to sort of branch out. Thank you to Tom for basically resurrecting the channel and making it look pretty and stuff like that. We really appreciate it. Hail to Tom. And on the next video, we're going to go back to something that you're probably very familiar with on the channel, and that is the subject of Doctor Who. A revisiting of the of our top 10 new series Doctor Who episodes, because Harry and Tom haven't had a chance to do that on camera, so that'll be quite interesting to see what their opinions are. Harry, by his face, is like brimming with like enthusiasm on that one. Yeah, if you like this, subscribe, like, thank you for the support, and we will catch you next week. Cheers.
Cheers, guys. Thanks very much.
Thank you.